Hello, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Slam Frank, a new musical. Now, before I get into this, please a reminder to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow this channel, so pound that subscribe button for me. All right, so Slam Frank. I was invited to see a 29-hour industry reading held at the Asylum Theater. A 29-hour reading is a contract with Actors Equity that allows you to use union actors to do a performance of your show where the actors have the script in hand and there's little to no staging. Usually the actors are just standing in a line at music stands. And it's called a 29-hour reading because you are allowed up to 29 hours of rehearsal. It's a great way to get your work in front of an audience and producers and potential investors and other industry folks without having to break the bank. So Slam Frank is a brand new satirical musical written by Andrew Fox and Joel Sinensky. Now, I do know Andrew personally. He's orchestrated my show Virtuoso, which is currently playing in Poland. So I'm familiar with some of his earlier work. I recently saw his show Veronica Gets an Abortion. So I knew what I was getting into. So what is Slam Frank? Well, it was inspired by a Twitter thread asking the question, did Anne Frank ever acknowledge her white privilege? And yeah, that gives you a sense of where we are headed. The show is framed as a woke regional theater company doing an adaptation of the Diary of Anne Frank. But in their version, Anne becomes Anita Franco, a pansexual Latino immigrant from the barrio. Peter Van Daan is now a non-binary climate change activist who expresses themselves through dance. Each member of the Frank and Van Daan family represents some aspect of woke culture, with the exception of Mr. Van Daan, who represents the white male patriarchy. The whole thing kicks off with a hilarious monologue from the straight white producer / director of this community theater who is mounting this adaptation. And he is earnestly explaining this wild concept like it's the most progressive thing ever. And I love that. I love this character. I wanted more of him. I say bring him back throughout the show to help keep the show on course, especially when the narrative starts to go into some more confusing territory. Because if we know the show is adapted by someone who's kind of clueless, then as an audience, we know it doesn't need to make perfect sense. But what does need to make sense for me is the family drama. We need to feel grounded in the story that's going on in the attic because that's what allows the satire around it to really take flight. When the family logic falters, I get a little unmoored, and I did find that happening a few times in the show. Now, let's talk about the tone of the show. The press material describes it as the Book of Mormon meets Assassins. It's aggressive, subversive. It's not trying to give you a warm, clear moral. Instead, it really undercuts every resolution. You think you're about to learn something or have a cathartic moment, and then bam, the song flips and you're in a darker place. And I loved this constant subversion of expectation. The thesis of the show really seems to be the cycle of oppression. The oppressed get power, and then they turn around and oppress the next group. It's bleak, sure, but it's honest. And it doesn't pretend that there's a simple answer. And of course, the show's hilarious, so that makes up for it. Okay, the songs, the lyric writing is terrific. It's super smart, very funny. The score references Hamilton, In the Heights, Rent, Once on This Island, Suffs, and some traditional golden age styles for the patriarchal white guy to sing. It's fitting, and usually it walks that parody line perfectly. We get the reference, but the song still stands on its own. Especially the opening song for the show, I think, is great, fantastic. The show opens so well and earns so much goodwill from the audience. There is one exception, which is the final song, which I felt was a little bit too close to the song it was mimicking. So I left the theater humming a song from another musical instead of humming the song from Slam Frank. So if the creatives don't want that to happen, they might want to take a look at that last song and tweak it a little bit so that it isn't so reminiscent of the song that it's parodying. Now, was I bored? No. The show moves fast, it's smart, it's packed with laughs. Was I confused? A little bit. but mostly because of the framing. I wasn't always sure when we were in modern day, when we were in the 1940s, what was part of the play within the play, and what was the creatives commenting on that play. But a lot of that might be fixed when it has a full production. There are some appearances made by some very bad men from the real world, and I didn't quite understand how they fit into the world of the play. And making one of them a trans woman wasn't a choice I loved. It didn't really land for me, and it risks equating trans people with sociopaths, which is probably not where we want to go. Also, I find that impressions of recent presidents is a little overdone, and a lot of us are just so sick and tired of hearing that man's voice that it's just hard to find it funny anymore. One big structural note I have is this concert ran for almost 2 hours, and I think it should be tightened to a 90-minute no intermission one act because it doesn't really have the narrative arc to support 2 acts. But that's a great place to be. Also, there's a red herring that I thought was set up with one of the characters that then wasn't used, and I was really surprised. So I thought that if they used that red herring when there's that big twist at the end of the show, that it could have made that twist even more powerful if we were misdirected to think it was going in a different direction. Now, I'm being a little vague about the twist at the end because I don't want to spoil anything for people who will inevitably go see this show when it's a great hit off Broadway. I also felt that the twist at the end wasn't as inevitable as it could have been. I didn't quite follow the characters' logic choice when they made their decision. And sorry to speak so cryptically, I just don't want to give anything away. So, final thoughts. This show is doing something bold. It's not for everyone, but I love that it exists. It holds up a mirror not to tell us how to be better, but to show us how awful we can be. And that's theater at its most honest. The cast was fantastic. I want to give a special shout out to Olivia Bernabe as the title character of Anne, or Anita. Rocky Patera as Otto was fantastic, and A.J. Holmes as Mr. Von Don was also great. The entire cast was great. Overall, I think the show is in excellent shape. The score is almost completely baked, and with some tweaks to the book, I think that it's ready for its New York debut. So keep your eye on Slam Frank. It's scheduled for a limited NYC run this fall. And you can also follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at Slam Frank Musical. So if you like theater that pokes the bear, this might be the show for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.